The desert wind howled across the empty research station as Dr. David Rodriguez finished his late-night shift. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the computer screens, showing nothing but static from deep space. For 3 years, he had been working at this remote facility in Nevada, searching for signs of life beyond Earth. Most nights were quiet, just like this one. David was a scientist who studied the possibility of alien life. He had always dreamed of making contact with beings from other worlds, but after years of silence, he was starting to lose hope. His equipment was old, his funding was running low, and his colleagues back at the university thought he was wasting his time in the middle of nowhere. At exactly 2:17 a.m., something changed. The computer started making strange noises, and all the screens began flashing with unusual patterns. David had never seen anything like it before. The readings were off the charts, showing energy levels that shouldn't be possible. His first thought was that the equipment was breaking down again, but something felt different this time. The signals were too organized, too perfect to be random equipment failure. They seemed to follow a pattern, almost like music or a language he couldn't understand. David's heart started beating faster as he realized what this might mean. After years of searching, he might finally be witnessing real contact from another world. Outside, the night sky began to glow with a soft blue light. David pressed his face against the window and watched in amazement as something incredible happened. A craft, unlike anything he had ever seen, slowly descended from the clouds. It wasn't making any sound, and it moved with a grace that seemed to defy the laws of physics he knew. The ship was beautiful in a way that took his breath away. Its surface seemed to shimmer and change colors like oil on water, and strange symbols glowed along its sides. It was clearly not made by human hands. David knew he should call his supervisors, follow the emergency protocols, and report what he was seeing. But something deep inside told him this moment was too important to share with bureaucrats and military officials who might ruin everything. Against every rule he had ever learned, David grabbed his jacket and walked outside into the cold desert night. The craft had landed about half a mile away, and as he walked toward it, he could feel a strange energy in the air. His skin tingled, and he noticed that his watch had stopped working. As he got closer, David saw that a door had opened in the side of the ship. Soft light spilled out, and a figure appeared in the doorway. David stopped walking and held his breath. This was it. This was the moment that would change everything. The being that stepped out of the craft looked somewhat like a human, but David could immediately tell she was something else entirely. She was tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to glow with its own inner light. Her eyes were larger than human eyes, and they held a wisdom that seemed ancient and deep. When she looked at him, David felt like she could see right into his soul. She raised her hand in what seemed like a peaceful gesture, and David found himself walking forward without fear. Somehow he knew she meant no harm. When she spoke, the sounds that came from her mouth were like nothing he had ever heard, but incredibly, he understood every word she said. "I have traveled very far to find you," she said, and her voice seemed to echo inside his mind rather than through his ears. "My name is Zara, and I am the leader of my people. We come from a place so distant that your telescopes cannot see it, from a galaxy that your scientists have not yet discovered." David tried to speak, but found his mouth was dry. He managed to whisper, "Why? Why have you come here?" Zara's expression grew sad, and David could somehow feel her emotions as if they were his own. "My people are dying," she explained. "For thousands of years we have lived in peace and harmony, but we have made a terrible mistake. We became too isolated, too perfect in our own ways. Now our children are born weak and fewer are born each year. Soon there will be none of us left." She stepped closer to David, and he could see that her skin changed colors slightly as her emotions shifted. It was the most beautiful and alien thing he had ever witnessed. We have searched the universe for a species that might help us survive, Zara continued. Your people, humans, are young, but strong. You have something we have lost, the ability to adapt, to grow, to change. We need that strength to save our civilization. David's scientific mind was racing with questions, but all he could manage to ask was, "How did you find me?" Zara smiled, and when she did, her whole face seemed to light up with warmth. We have been watching your world for many years, studying your people. You, David, are special. Your work, your dedication to finding life beyond your world, your genetic makeup. Everything about you makes you unique. You are the bridge we have been searching for. The weight of her words hit David like a physical force. This wasn't just a random encounter. She had come specifically for him. His life's work, all those lonely nights searching the stars had, led to this moment. I don't understand, David said, his voice shaking. What do you need from me? Zara's eyes grew even more serious. I need you to trust me, she said. What I am asking will change your life forever. It will change both of our lives. But if you say yes, you could help save an entire civilization that has existed since before your planet was born. David looked back at the research station, then at the incredible being standing before him. He thought about his quiet, lonely life, his failed relationships, his colleagues who thought he was crazy for believing in alien life. Now, standing in front of him was proof that everything he had believed was true. What happens if I say no? He asked. Zara's glow dimmed slightly. Then I will respect your choice and leave. I will search for another, though I do not think I will find anyone as perfect as you. My people will continue to fade away, and eventually, the universe will lose, something beautiful that can never be replaced. David realized that this moment would define not just his life, but possibly the fate of an entire species. The scientist in him was fascinated. The human in him was terrified. But something deeper, something in his heart, told him that this was why he had been born. I'll listen, he said finally. Tell me what you need. Zara's smile returned, brighter than before, and David felt warmth spread through his chest. Thank you, she whispered. Come with me, and I will show you wonders beyond your imagination. I will show you why you are so important, not just to me, but to the future of life itself. As David followed Zara toward her ship, he looked up at the stars one last time as the person he used to be. Tomorrow, he would wake up in a new world, with new possibilities he had never dreamed of. The search for alien life was over. Now, the real adventure was about to begin. 3 days had passed since David first stepped inside Zara's ship, and his world had turned completely upside down. The place where she had taken him defied everything he thought he knew about science and reality. Hidden deep in the desert mountains, Zara had created what she called a sanctuary space, a place that seemed to exist between dimensions. Walking through it was like stepping into a dream. The walls shimmered and changed colors based on his emotions. When he felt calm, they glowed soft blue. When he was excited or nervous, they pulsed with warm golden light. The air itself felt alive, adjusting its temperature and humidity to keep him comfortable. David had stopped trying to understand how it all worked and simply accepted that he was experiencing technology thousands of years ahead of anything humans had created. Your mind is adapting faster than I expected, Zara said, as she watched him explore the main chamber. She was sitting on what looked like a chair made of liquid light that had somehow become solid. Most beings take weeks to feel comfortable in a dimensional pocket like this. David turned to look at her, still amazed by how her appearance changed with her moods. Right now, she seemed pleased, and her skin had a warm, silvery glow that reminded him of moonlight on water. I feel like I'm living in a science fiction movie, he admitted. Part of me keeps waiting to wake up back at the research station. This is very real, David, Zara said softly. And now I must tell you the complete truth about why I brought you here. What I am about to ask of you will seem impossible, perhaps even frightening. But please, listen with an open heart. David sat down across from her on another chair that formed itself from the floor. Over the past 3 days, he had learned to trust Zara completely. She had shown him nothing but kindness and had answered every question he asked about her people and their technology. Still, something in her tone made him nervous. My people call themselves the Etherians, Zara began. We have lived for millions of your years, watching civilizations rise and fall across the universe. We learned to manipulate matter and energy, to travel between stars, to extend our lives far beyond what most species can imagine. We thought we had achieved perfection. She stood up and walked to what looked like a window, though David knew it was actually showing images directly from her memory. The view changed to show a beautiful world with floating cities and beings of light moving gracefully through crystal forests. But perfection became our curse, Zara continued, her voice heavy with sadness. We became so focused on maintaining our pure genetic line that we stopped growing, stopped changing. Now, after all these centuries, our DNA has become too stable. Our children are born weaker with each generation. In 50 years, maybe less, the last Etherian will die, and the universe will lose everything we have learned and created. David watched the images of her dying world and felt his heart break for her people. That's terrible, he whispered. But I still don't understand what I can do to help. Zara turned back to him, and her eyes were filled with both hope and fear. Life needs diversity to survive, David. It needs the chaos and unpredictability that your human DNA carries. Your species is young, wild, and constantly changing. You have something we lost long ago, the ability to adapt and grow stronger through challenges. She walked over and knelt beside his chair. I am asking you to help me create something that has never existed before, a joining of our two species that could save both of us. The Etherians need new genetic pathways to survive, and humans need to prepare for the challenges that are coming to your world. David's scientific mind immediately understood what she was suggesting, but the human part of him recoiled in shock. You want to have children? With me? It is more than that, Zara explained gently. What I am proposing would create a bond between us that goes beyond physical connection. Our consciousness would merge in ways that would change us both. Forever. You would gain access to the wisdom and abilities of my people, and I would learn to experience life through human emotions and instincts. She reached out and touched his hand, and David felt a warm, tingling sensation travel up his arm. I have already begun the process of modifying my own biology to make this possible. It has been painful. I can never return to my original form. I have sacrificed my old life in the hope that you would be willing to sacrifice yours. David pulled his hand away, not because he didn't trust her, but because he needed to think clearly. This is enormous, Zara. You're talking about changing who I am at the most basic level. What if something goes wrong? What if we create something dangerous? There are risks, Zara admitted. No one has ever attempted anything like this before. But David, look at me. Really look at me. David studied her face and realized that beneath her alien features, he could see something very human in her eyes. She was scared, just like he was. She was lonely, carrying the weight of her entire species on her shoulders. She was taking an enormous gamble by trusting him with her people's future. How long have you been alone on this mission? He asked, quietly. 17 of your years, she replied. I have traveled from world to world, searching for the right species, the right individual. I have faced rejection, hostility, and countless failures. There were times when I wanted to give up and return home to die with my people rather than continue this seemingly impossible quest. David felt a surge of emotion that surprised him. In just 3 days, he had come to care about this remarkable being more than anyone he had ever known. The thought of her suffering alone for so many years filled him with both sadness and determination. "What changed your mind?" he asked. "What kept you going?" Zara's expression softened, and her skin took on a warm, pink glow. "Hope," she said simply, "and the belief that somewhere in the universe there was someone like you, someone who would understand that love and cooperation are stronger than fear and isolation." The word love hung in the air between them, and David realized that what he was feeling wasn't just scientific curiosity or sympathy. Over the past 3 days, he had fallen in love with Zara's wisdom, her courage, her gentle nature, and her dedication to saving her people. The idea of her leaving and continuing her search alone was unbearable. "If I agree to this," David said, slowly, "what happens to Earth? To my life here?" "You would become a bridge between our worlds," Zara explained. "The children we create would carry the best of both species, and they could help guide humanity through the challenges ahead. Climate change, resource depletion, conflicts between nations. These problems require new ways of thinking that combine human creativity with Etherian wisdom." David stood up and walked to the memory window, looking out at the images of Zara's beautiful, dying world. He thought about his own lonely life on Earth, his failed relationships, his colleagues who thought he was wasting his time searching for alien life. Then he thought about the possibility of creating something entirely new, something that could help both species survive and thrive. "I need you to promise me something," he said finally. "Anything," Zara replied immediately. "Promise me that no matter what happens, we'll face it together. I don't want to go through this transformation and then be left alone to figure out what I've become." Zara stood up and walked over to him. She placed her hands on his shoulders, and David felt that warm, tingling sensation again, but stronger this time. "I promise you, David Rodriguez, that from this moment forward, your fate and mine are intertwined. Whatever we become, we will become together." David looked into her large, wise eyes and saw his future reflected there. It was scary and uncertain, but it was also filled with possibilities he had never dreamed of. "Then yes," he said quietly, "I'll do it. I'll help you. Save your people." Zara's entire body blazed with golden light, and David felt her joy wash over him like a warm wave. "Thank you," she whispered, and for the first time since he had met her, she seemed to glow with true happiness rather than just hope. As they embraced, David realized that his old life was officially over. Tomorrow, he would begin a transformation that would change him forever. He was terrified, excited, and more alive than he had ever felt before. The transformation began at dawn on David's 5th day in the sanctuary. He had spent the night unable to sleep, his mind racing with questions about what was about to happen to him. Zara had explained the process as best she could, but some things simply couldn't be put into words that humans understood. "The bonding will happen slowly," she had told him the night before. "Your body and mind need time to adjust to the changes. If we rush it, the shock could damage both of us permanently." Now, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the dimensional walls of their sanctuary, David sat facing Zara in the center of the main chamber. She had prepared a special area where the fabric of space itself seemed softer, more flexible. The air shimmered around them like heat waves rising from summer pavement. "Are you ready?" Zara asked softly. Her skin was glowing with a nervous energy that David had learned to recognize. Despite all her advanced knowledge and technology, she was just as scared as he was. David nodded, though his mouth felt dry. "What do I need to do?" "Just trust me," she replied, And try not to fight what you feel happening. Your human instincts will want to resist the changes, but you must let them flow through you. Zara reached out and took his hands in hers. The moment their skin touched, David felt a jolt of electricity run through his entire body. But this wasn't painful. It was like suddenly being plugged into a power source he never knew existed. Every nerve in his body came alive with new sensations. "I can feel your heartbeat," he whispered in amazement. "Not just hear it. I can actually feel it beating in my own chest." Zara smiled, and David could sense her relief that the initial connection was working. "That's just the beginning," she said. "Close your eyes and let yourself experience what comes next." David closed his eyes and immediately felt like he was falling, not downward, but inward, into depths of consciousness he never knew existed. Images began flashing through his mind, but they weren't his memories. He was seeing Zara's childhood on her distant world, playing with other young Etherians in gardens of crystal trees that sang in the wind. He felt her emotions from those long-ago days, the joy of discovery, the warmth of being surrounded by loving family, the gradual realization as she grew older that her people were slowly dying, the weight of becoming their leader, the loneliness of her long journey through space, the desperate hope that kept her going when everything seemed impossible. "I can see your world," David gasped, his eyes still closed. "It's the most beautiful place I've ever imagined." At the same time, he felt Zara experiencing his own memories. She was seeing his lonely childhood, his fascination with the stars, his failed attempts at relationships with women who couldn't understand his obsession with finding life beyond Earth. She felt his years of rejection from the scientific community, his growing isolation, and his deep sadness at thinking he might die without ever proving that life existed elsewhere in the universe. "Your emotions are so intense," Zara said, and David could hear wonder in her voice. "Humans feel everything, so deeply, even pain. We Etherians learned long ago to control our emotions, but yours are like storms of pure energy." Hours passed, though time seemed to have no meaning in their shared consciousness. David began to notice physical changes happening to his body. His vision became sharper, able to see colors that had no names in human language. His hearing expanded, until he could detect the electromagnetic hum of Zara's technology and even the subtle vibrations of the Earth's magnetic field. Most dramatically, he began to sense the connections between all living things. He could feel the network of life that spread across the planet. Every plant, every animal, every microorganism linked in an intricate web of energy and information. "This is how we see the universe," Zara explained, her voice echoing inside, his mind rather than through his ears. "Everything is connected. Every action affects everything else. This is why we became so careful, so controlled. We could see how even small changes could ripple across entire galaxies." David understood now why the Etherians had become too cautious to evolve. When you could see every consequence of every action, it became terrifying to change anything at all. But humans, in their ignorance of these connections, had remained wild and adaptable. "And this is why you need us," he realized. "We're too young to be afraid of change." "Yes," Zara agreed. "And we can teach you wisdom without destroying your courage." As the days continued, the changes in David became more profound. He found he could communicate with Zara without speaking, their thoughts flowing back and forth like a conversation in a language deeper than words. He could manipulate small objects with his mind, moving them by focusing on their molecular structure. Most surprisingly, he began to understand the technology around them. The sanctuary's walls, the energy systems, the dimensional pockets. It all started to make sense to him as his consciousness expanded to include Etherian knowledge. But the changes weren't one-sided. Zara was transforming too, and in ways that surprised both of them. She began experiencing human emotions with startling intensity. She laughed for the first time in centuries when David shared a funny memory from his childhood. She cried when she felt the depth of his loneliness from all those years at the research station. I had forgotten what it felt like to be truly surprised, she told him one evening as they watched the sunset through the sanctuary's walls. Etherians live so long that we eventually experience everything, but through your memories, I'm seeing ordinary things, like this sunset, as if for the first time. David noticed that her appearance was changing too. While she still looked clearly alien, there was something more human in her expressions, the way she moved, even the rhythm of her speech. The rigid perfection of her people was giving way to something more natural and spontaneous. "Are you becoming more human?" he asked her. "I think we're both becoming something new," she replied. Neither fully human nor fully Etherian, but a bridge between both. The most incredible change came on the 10th day. David woke up feeling different in a way he couldn't immediately identify. It was Zara who told him what had happened. "The bonding is complete," she said, and her whole being seemed to glow with joy and anticipation. "David, the merging of our genetic patterns has been successful. We have created new life." David stared at her in amazement. "You mean I am carrying our child," Zara confirmed, placing her hand on her stomach. "A being that has never existed before in the history of the universe, part human, part Etherian, but something entirely unique." David felt overwhelmed by a mixture of emotions. Joy, terror, pride, and responsibility all crashed over him at once. He was going to be a father, but not just to any child. This baby would represent the future of both their species. "What will happen to it?" he asked. "What will it be like?" Zara's expression became thoughtful. "I don't know," she admitted. "The genetic combination is stable, but the consciousness that will emerge from it is completely unknown. It might have abilities that surpass both our species, or it might face challenges we can't imagine." David reached out and placed his hand over hers on her stomach. Through their bond, he could sense the tiny spark of life growing within her. It felt familiar and alien at the same time, carrying echoes of both their minds, but with something uniquely its own. "Whatever happens," he said firmly, "we'll face it together. All three of us." Zara leaned against him, and David marveled at how natural it felt to hold this being from another world. The scared, lonely scientist who had walked out into the desert 2 weeks ago was gone forever. In his place was someone new, still human at his core, but expanded beyond anything he had ever dreamed possible. As they sat together in the sanctuary, preparing for the next phase of their incredible journey, David realized that their transformation was just the beginning. Soon, they would have to return to the outside world and face the reactions of both their species to what they had created. But for now, in this moment, they were simply two beings from different worlds who had found love and hope in the vast darkness of the universe. David knew he couldn't hide forever. After 3 weeks in the sanctuary with Zara, he had to return to the research station and face the world he had left behind. But the man who walked back into the facility was completely different from the one who had disappeared into the desert night. His supervisor, Dr. Peterson, was waiting for him with a mixture of relief and anger. "Where have you been, David? We've had search teams looking for you. The government has been asking questions. Your equipment registered some kind of massive energy surge the night you vanished, and then nothing." David tried to act normal, but everything about him had changed. His enhanced senses made the fluorescent lights feel like burning suns. He could hear conversations happening 3 rooms away. Worst of all, he could sense Dr. Peterson's emotions: confusion, suspicion, and fear. "I got lost in the desert," David lied, hating himself for it. "My equipment malfunctioned, and I had to walk for miles to find shelter." Dr. Peterson studied him carefully. "You look different. Healthier somehow. And your eyes." He paused, clearly disturbed by something he couldn't quite identify. David's eyes had changed color during the transformation, shifting from brown to a deep blue that seemed to glow with its own inner light. He had hoped people wouldn't notice, but his enhanced vision was apparently visible to others. "I spent a lot of time outdoors," David said weakly. "The desert sun can change how you look." But Dr. Peterson wasn't convinced. Over the next few days, David's colleagues began to notice other changes. His research took incredible leaps forward as he began applying Etherian knowledge to human problems. Equations that had puzzled scientists for decades suddenly became clear to him. He could predict solar flares and atmospheric disturbances with impossible accuracy. "It's like you've become a completely different person," said Dr. Jennifer Walsh, his closest colleague at the station. "Your work was always good, but now it's beyond anything I've ever seen. How did you figure out the solution to the quantum resonance problem that's been stumping physicists for years?" David couldn't tell her the truth. That Etherian science had solved those problems thousands of years ago. Instead, he made up stories about having breakthrough insights during his time alone in the desert. But with each lie, he felt more isolated from the people he had once considered friends. The situation became much worse when government agents arrived at the station, men in dark suits with serious faces and clipboards full of questions. They had detected the energy signatures from Zara's ship and wanted answers that David couldn't give. "Satellite data shows an anomalous energy reading at these coordinates," Agent Thompson said, pointing to a map of the exact location where David had first met Zara. "The energy signature was unlike anything in our databases. We need to know what you saw out there." David's heart raced, but his enhanced abilities allowed him to control his physical responses perfectly. The agents couldn't detect his nervousness through normal means, but he knew they were suspicious anyway. "I already told Dr. Peterson everything," David said calmly. "I got lost and had to find shelter. I didn't see anything unusual." Agent Thompson leaned forward. "Mr. Rodriguez, I'm going to be direct with you. We have reason to believe you may have encountered something or someone during your time in the desert. Your behavior since returning has been notable. Your colleagues report dramatic changes in your abilities and knowledge. We need you to be completely honest with us." David realized that his attempts to act normal were failing badly. His enhanced intelligence made it hard to pretend he didn't understand complex concepts that would have confused him before. His improved physical coordination was noticeable. Even his speech patterns had changed as he unconsciously adopted some of Zara's more formal way of expressing ideas. Meanwhile, back at the sanctuary, Zara was facing her own challenges. The pregnancy was affecting her in ways she hadn't expected. The developing child carried both human unpredictability and Etherian cosmic awareness, creating a combination that was overwhelming her normally controlled emotional state. She was experiencing dreams for the first time in her long life, vivid, chaotic, human-style dreams filled with images she couldn't control or interpret. Sometimes she dreamed of David's childhood, sometimes of possible futures for their child, and sometimes of strange places that seemed to exist between dimensions. The most disturbing development was the arrival of other Etherian ships. Zara's people had finally tracked her down, and they were not pleased with what they found. "You have contaminated yourself," said Commander Vex, Zara's former teacher and the leader of the search expedition. His appearance was more traditionally Etherian than Zara's had become, tall, pale, and emotionally controlled. "The genetic sample you carry is impure. It will weaken our species rather than strengthen it." "You're wrong," Zara replied, though she could feel doubt creeping into her mind. "The bonding has been successful beyond all our projections. This child will carry the best of both species." "This child will be a monster," Commander Vex said, coldly. "Neither fully human nor fully Etherian. It will belong to neither world and will be rejected by both." You have doomed yourself and possibly our entire species with this foolish experiment." Other Etherians in the expedition agreed with Vex. They had come to collect Zara and the genetic material she carried, but they wanted to separate the human elements from the Etherian ones. In their view, David was a contamination that needed to be removed from the equation. "We will take you home," Commander Vex announced. "The human will be dealt with appropriately." "What does that mean?" Zara demanded, her protective instincts flaring for the first time in her long life. "He knows too much about us. He has been changed by our technology. He cannot be allowed to return to his people and share what he has learned." Zara realized with horror that her own people were planning to eliminate David. The very beings she had sacrificed everything to save were now threatening the person she had come to love more than her own life. Back at the research station, David's situation was becoming equally dangerous. The government agents were putting together the pieces of what had happened, and their conclusions were leading them toward actions that would separate him from Zara forever. "We believe you've been in contact with an unidentified intelligence," Agent Thompson told him during another interrogation. "For national security reasons, we need to isolate you until we can determine the extent of your exposure and any potential threats to the country." David knew that isolation was a polite word for imprisonment. Once they took him away from the desert, he would never be able to return to Zara and their unborn child. The enhanced connection between them was already weakening due to distance, and he could sense her distress even though he didn't know the specific cause. That night, David made a decision that would change everything. Using his new abilities, he disabled the security systems at the research station and escaped into the desert. He had to reach Zara before either the human authorities or her own people could separate them forever. As he ran across the sand dunes, under the starlight, David realized that he and Zara were now truly alone. Both of their species saw them as threats rather than bridges to a better future. The child they were bringing into the world would be born into a universe that might reject it simply for being different. But David also felt something else, a determination stronger than any fear. He had found love and purpose in the vast emptiness of space, and he wasn't going to let anyone destroy that. Whatever happened next, he and Zara would face it together, just as they had promised each other. The desert stretched out before him, and somewhere in its hidden depths, the woman he loved was waiting with their child, a being that represented either the salvation or the destruction of two entire species. David ran faster, knowing that time was running out for all of them. 6 months later, everything had changed. David reached the sanctuary just as Zara was going into labor, and together they faced the most important moment in the history of both their species. The birth happened during a desert thunderstorm, as if the planet itself was celebrating the arrival of something unprecedented. Their daughter was born with her eyes wide open, taking in the world with a calm intelligence that was both human and alien. She had David's dark hair but Zara's luminous skin, which shifted between human flesh tones and the soft glow of her mother's people. When she looked at her parents, they could both feel her consciousness touching theirs. Curious, loving, and incredibly powerful. "She's perfect," David whispered, holding his daughter for the first time. The baby's skin warmed under his touch, and he felt a connection to her that was even deeper than his bond with Zara. "What should we call her?" Zara asked, exhausted but radiant with joy. David thought for a moment, looking at his daughter's face, as she gazed up at the stars visible through the sanctuary's transparent walls. "Luna," he said finally. "She belongs to both Earth and the cosmos, like the moon that connects them." Luna grew at an incredible rate, both physically and mentally. By her first month, she was walking. By her third month, she could communicate in both human speech and Etherian telepathy. Most remarkably, she seemed to understand things about the universe that even her parents didn't fully grasp. "She's not just a hybrid," Zara observed one day as they watched 2-year-old Luna playing with holographic butterflies that she had, somehow created from pure thought. She's evolved beyond both our species. Her mind works in ways we never imagined possible. Luna could heal injured animals with her touch, communicate with plants, and even manipulate weather patterns on a small scale. But more importantly, she had an ability that surpassed anything either parent species possessed. She could help others experience the unity of consciousness that David and Zara had discovered. When desert animals wandered into their sanctuary, Luna would touch them gently, and suddenly coyotes and rabbits would play together peacefully. Plants grew faster and stronger around her. Even the harsh desert environment seemed to soften in her presence, creating small oases of life wherever she spent time. David and Zara realized that their daughter represented something much bigger than they had originally hoped for. She wasn't just a bridge between two species. She was a catalyst for a new kind of existence entirely. But they couldn't hide forever. The government agents were still searching for David, and Commander Vex's Etherian ships remained in orbit, waiting for the right moment to intervene. Something had to be done. The solution came from an unexpected source. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, David's former colleague, had been quietly investigating his disappearance. Unlike the government agents, she approached the mystery as a scientist rather than a security threat. "I know you're out there somewhere, David," she broadcast on radio frequencies she knew he monitored. "Your research before you disappeared was leading somewhere important. If you found what you were looking for, maybe it's time to share it with the world." After long discussions with Zara, David decided to take an enormous risk. He contacted Jennifer and arranged to meet her at a location far from both government surveillance and Etherian observation. "My God, David," Jennifer breathed when she saw him. "You look different. Healthier somehow. More alive." "I found what I was looking for, Jen," David said simply. "And it found me, too." He told her everything about Zara, about the transformation, about Luna. Jennifer listened with the open mind of a true scientist, asking questions and examining the evidence David could provide without revealing the sanctuary's location. "This could change everything," she whispered when he finished. "But the government, the military, they'll want to weaponize it. They'll want to capture your family and study them." "I know," David replied. "That's why I need your help. We can't hide forever, but we can't just surrender to people who will see Luna as a threat rather than a gift to the world." Jennifer agreed to help them, but she wasn't the only one. Word of David's discovery began to spread quietly through the scientific community. Not everyone was interested in military applications or government control. Some researchers, like Jennifer, understood that they were witnessing the next step in human evolution. A small group of scientists, doctors, and philosophers began meeting in secret. They called themselves the Bridge Project, and their goal was simple: to prepare humanity for contact with Zara's people and to protect David's growing family from those who would exploit or harm them. Meanwhile, changes were happening among the Etherians as well. Not all of Zara's people agreed with Commander Vex's harsh judgment. Some younger Etherians had been monitoring the situation and were fascinated by what Zara had achieved. "She has done something we thought impossible," said researcher Kale, one of Vex's subordinates. "The hybrid child shows abilities that surpass both parent species. Perhaps we have been too quick to judge this experiment as a failure." A split developed among the Etherians in orbit. Half wanted to follow Vex's orders to eliminate the contamination, while the other half wanted to study and learn from what Zara had created. This division gave David and Zara the time they needed to prepare for what came next. The turning point came when Luna was 3 years old. She had been playing in the sanctuary when she suddenly stopped and looked up at the sky with concern. "Mama," she said in her clear musical voice, "the angry star people are coming. They want to hurt Papa." Zara immediately understood. Commander Vex had decided to end the situation by force. Etherian ships were descending toward Earth, planning to capture the sanctuary and separate the family forever. But Luna wasn't finished. "It's okay," she said calmly. "I can show them the truth." Before either parent could stop her, Luna walked outside the sanctuary and looked up at the approaching ships. Her small form began to glow with a light that was visible even in daylight. The glow expanded outward, creating a dome of soft radiance that encompassed the entire area. Every being within that dome, human government agents who had been closing in, Etherian soldiers preparing for conflict, even David and Zara themselves suddenly experienced something unprecedented. For a brief moment, they all shared Luna's consciousness and saw the universe through her eyes. They felt the connections between all living things, the beauty of diversity, the strength that comes from cooperation rather than conflict. They experienced the love between David and Zara, the hope for the future that Luna represented, and the terrible waste that would result from destroying something so precious out of fear. When the light faded, everything had changed. Commander Vex stood in the desert sand, tears streaming down his face. The first tears an Etherian had shed in thousands of years. "I understand now," he whispered. "She isn't a contamination. She's evolution itself." The government agents, led by Agent Thompson, approached slowly. "We came here to arrest you," Thompson said to David. "But what we just experienced, I don't think our world is ready for this kind of change." "Maybe not yet," David agreed, "but it will be. Luna isn't the only child like this. There will be others." And he was right. Over the following years, more Etherians chose to bond with humans who were ready for the transformation. The children born from these unions all shared Luna's remarkable abilities, creating a new generation that belonged to both worlds, but was limited by neither. David and Zara established a school in the desert, hidden from those who weren't ready, but open to anyone who approached with genuine curiosity and peaceful intentions. Luna became the first teacher in this new kind of education, helping both human and Etherian children learn to use their expanded abilities responsibly. The world began to change slowly. Climate problems that had seemed impossible to solve became manageable when approached with hybrid consciousness that could see the connections between all Earth systems. Conflicts between nations decreased as more leaders experienced the unity that Luna and her siblings could share. Not everyone accepted these changes. There were still those who feared what they didn't understand, who wanted to control or destroy anything that challenged their view of how the world should work. But for every person who reacted with fear, there were others who welcomed the possibility of growth and transformation. David often stood with Zara at the edge of their sanctuary, watching Luna play with other hybrid children as the sun set over the desert. The lonely scientist who had searched the stars for proof that life existed elsewhere seemed like a different person now, someone from another lifetime. "Do you ever regret it?" Zara asked him one evening. "Giving up your old life for this uncertain future?" David watched his daughter teaching a group of human and Etherian children how to make flowers bloom with their thoughts. The children's laughter echoed across the desert, a sound that represented hope for both species. "Never," he said, taking Zara's hand. "We didn't just find each other in the desert that night. We found the future." Luna looked over at her parents and smiled, her young face glowing with the wisdom of both worlds and the promise of something entirely new. The universe was vast and full of challenges, but it was also full of possibilities that no one had ever dreamed of before.